our second edition. This is the second edition of the TEI OBVET and Friends webinar series. So yes, warm welcome. Thank you for joining us today. So we're going to explore a topic that really lies at the heart of the Team Europe initiative on opportunity-driven skills and VET in Africa. So how do public and private partnership turn into tangible results for skill development and employment? And so how to use as well public-private dialogue as a tool for that. So as you may know, the TEI OBVET brings together European and African partners to strengthen skills ecosystems that respond to private sector needs and investment opportunities, and this in line with the EU Global Gateway Strategy. And so, of course, public-private dialogue is key to making this happen, but we all know it is not easy, not always easy at least. We all start from good intentions, but then how do we really move from those good intentions to a sustained collaboration? And how can this dialogue then lead to action on the ground? That is what we are going to explore today. So again, welcome and thank you for joining us. We hope as well that you will participate in the discussion afterwards. So first, yeah, let's warm up a bit. For this, we've prepared two questions. So I will ask Capucine. I will ask Capucine to please launch the polls. Or I can even do it. Yes, okay. So I think you should see it pop out on your screen. So the first question is then in one word, what is key to making a public-private partnership work? Donc, en un mot, quelle est la clé du succès d'un partenariat public-privé? So, yeah, you're welcome to put your answer in. I hope you can see it. If you cannot see it, please let me know. Let us know in the chat. I see some people participated already. Okay, that's great. And then the second question, what do you think is the biggest challenge in public-private partnerships for skills development? So there's 5 propositions. So building trust between actors, ensuring sustainability over time, aligning public and private priorities, getting the private sector to co-invest, or if you have another challenge, your biggest challenge, please, if you select that option, then I'm curious and you have to answer, of course, in the chat. Put it in the chat, please. All right, let me see. Okay, great. So there's quite a few people already answering. So the first question, it is a bit of a pity, but maybe it is me who is not so familiar with that, but I cannot see your answers in real time. Second question though, so what is the biggest challenge? I do see that the majority of you, well, no, yeah, a third of you selected aligning public and private priorities as the main challenge. Of course, we know that it is a very important one in public-private partnerships, right? And dialogue. How do we make sure that we are all on the same page and that we reach this kind of win-win situation for both? Building trust is also quite popular. It is, of course, something that takes time. And then, yeah, some of you selected getting the private sector to co-invest. Hopefully today we will also get some clues as to how to best manage that, and then ensuring sustainability over time. We will also touch upon that, of course. In the presentations that will follow. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't see the word that you've all put in what is key to make a public making a public-private partnership work. But probably then after the webinar ends, I will be able to see what you've all put in. I'm very curious anyways to see what you've answered in that. All right. So I think now we can start. I see that we're at least 80 participants, so I'm very happy that you all joined today. So for the agenda today, we're going to have first the TI OBVET approach. So our program present its approach to PPPs and PDDs. Martina, my colleague, will do that. Then we're going to have Diego Borrero from the ICR facility. He's going to share the facility's extensive experience on PPD. They're not working they're working in a different context than skills development, but they really have a lot of experience, which makes them very relevant for the topic. Then we're going to have the Namibia Green Hydrogen Program present their National Task Force on Education, Skills and Research for Green Hydrogen and its derivatives. So an example from a real concrete PPD from the also involved in the TEI OBVET. Then we're going to have ample time for Q&A and discussion, I hope, and then a short conclusion, and a wrap up. All right, so yes, you've joined us today for this webinar on public and private actors and private partnerships and dialogues, how to really concretely turn them into action. So today that's what we're going to explore, how to really make this collaboration between public and private actors successful, and how to make it also so that it makes skills development more responsive to labor market needs. We're going to showcase some practical approaches, examples as well, discuss key success factors, challenges, lessons as well, to turn dialogue into concrete actions for skills and employment. So of course, we're also very curious if you have experience with those public-private partnerships and dialogues, to hear from you. All right, so very briefly before we dive into the topic of public-private partnerships and dialogues, it is of course at the core of our program. So what is our program? It is the Team Europe initiative on opportunity-driven skills and VET in Africa, so TEI OBVET in short. This is a 5-year program that was launched in 2024. It is funded by the European Commission with contribution from Germany, BMZ, and it is jointly implemented by 4 European agencies. So we have Expertise France, EDUFI for Finland, Enable for Belgium, and GIZ for Germany. So the TEI OBVET is built around 3 pillars that you can see on your screen now, each led by one of the implementing agencies, and then the whole TEI, the overall management, falls with Enable. So the first pillar is a technical assistance facility, which is request-based, and it aims to support requesters in making VETs more responsive to employment opportunities stemming from investment in sub-Saharan Africa. Then the second pillar, it organizes regional exchanges to increase then exchange and foster partnerships between the private sector, VET providers, and the public sector as well. So it really promotes the OBVET approach at regional level in sub-Saharan Africa, also then showcasing practices and lessons learned from the program. And then the third pillar funds OBVET projects, so opportunity-driven VET projects in selected countries and sectors in sub-Saharan Africa. So what is then this OBVET approach that I've been talking about since the beginning? Well, it is really at the core of our program, and it starts from the principle that VET alone doesn't create jobs. But then when it is connected to investments and job opportunities, it can be a powerful tool for helping people into decent work. So really, employment here is the leading perspective. And so there are 4 steps to the approach. I will briefly go through them. So first, before even designing any training, OBVET will identify actual job opportunities linked to ongoing or planned investments. So this is done by engaging with local authorities, chambers of commerce, private sector, investment agencies, and so on. And of course, the public-private dialogue is key to that because it helps us explore the job potential of new public or private investments or investment strategies as well. Then we also then, of course, look not only at one company and but really adopting a broader value chain approach at this step, trying to really look at the employment potential along the value chain. Then once promising opportunities are found, we then explore what human resources are needed and which skills are in demand to fill in those positions. So again, public-private dialogue platforms, they offer a very valuable platform, valuable platform and forum to identify the skills needs together then with the training provider. And then based on this inputs, we will really develop flexible and targeted VET and skills development programs. So or creating ones or also consolidate, adjust existing ones to close the skills gap. And then, of course, the end result is that trainees are equipped with relevant skills for available jobs. And then, on the other hand, of course, the companies find the qualified staff that they're looking for. So as you can see here, you can see that public-private dialogue and partnerships are really essential to OBVET because then the collaboration with the private sector as well is at the core of the OBVET approach. All right, so that was a very short introduction to our program, but now we're going to dig a bit deeper into the core topic of the webinar, so public-private partnerships and dialogues. And for this, I am going to give the floor to Martina, my colleague.
Thanks, Pauline, and hello, everyone. Happy to join the webinar on public-private partnerships and look a bit into the lessons we learned so far. So for our program, the Team Europe Initiative in Opportunity-Driven Skills and VET in Africa, there is maybe not so much learning yet as it is running only since a year. And public-private partnerships, the creation of those, it needs time. So what we can do, we can draw from the predecessor program. It is VET Toolbox. You see the logo here. Also a multi-agency, multi-partnership program. And there we had a lot of public-private partnerships and dialogue fora, and we could draw some lessons. So for an opportunity-driven VET context, what do we mean with public-private partnerships? We really, they are the backbone of the program. So they are really key to opportunity-driven vocational education and training, and they bring together various stakeholders around one table. It's the private sector, federations, business associations, chambers, investors, companies of all sizes. They bring together the public sector from the VET and employment authorities, ministries, but also other service providers. They bring, of course, along the VET providers or labor market intermediaries. They can be public and private as well as financial partners. Also key player in public-private partnerships. It, of course, always depends on the context whom to get around one table. The aim in the frame of opportunity-driven skills development is to jointly plan and implement programs that lead to decent jobs. And we believe and we saw that with good, strong partnerships, this can really work out. So let's look into what makes those partnerships effective. Some success factors is certainly that there is shared objectives and some mutual trust. This needs time, but it's important that collaborative dialogue is set up where all partners know towards which objectives to steer, and that they really have the ownership and they want to achieve equally the objectives, either from private or from the public side. Also, it creates a joint responsibility for outcomes, and when I'm talking about really setting up something in common, it's also important that every partner contributes. This can be co-financing or other shared resources. So we can really set up something together and create a clear win-win where everyone is willing to contribute and can be in-kind financial, and everyone can use the resources at the same level. So this is really, really important for partnerships at an equal level. Ideally, those partnerships are formalized and structured by public-private dialogue platforms. Formalization is not a must-be. It also depends on the context. If it can run without formalization, it will be as fine, but usually at a certain level and at a certain scale, we recommend to set up dialogue platforms that really are well structured. Yes. So public-private dialogue mechanisms are very important to run partnerships in an OPVET approach, and they really serve for a continuous and systematic exchange on skills development, employment, and investment needs in the relevant sectors. So we want to have dialogue structures that lead to agreements and action, and of course to outcomes that are also followed up. So not any one-off events or nice gatherings, which is also nice time by time, but here we talk about a structured approach to get things done so that partners benefit who contribute as well. So that's the base, let's say. Next slide, please. Yes. Then there are very different levels and formats of those dialogue platforms, and we piloted them all. So I'm presenting now some formats, the levels and functions they can take. Formats can be conferences, roundtables, bilateral exchanges, regular dialogue formats, also online. So it can also be, of course, a combination of all of it. Levels, platforms can operate at regional, national, local, sectoral, or cross-sectoral level. It really depends on the program, on the project, and the context, of course, on the needs of the partners. They can have several functions and all at the same time as well. So we had dialogue platforms that were really keen on policy advocacy, involving ministries, high-level participants from the private sector, like chambers, to really reach the policy level, to develop a skills program that is integrated in the system in the country. We had platforms that are really there for opportunity identification and validation. Sorry, I think the slides were stopped. But those platforms, they were really mechanisms to identify opportunities that were brought in by the private sector or the public sector. Sometimes there were legal regulations, labor market dynamics that offered some investment opportunities. They were discussed together in partnership. People were discussing about skills need, about skills gap, and those opportunities could find a response through skills development in partnership. So they can also have quite pragmatic functions, like setting up a skills development program, a training, or to run the project management of skills development projects. Also, and I would like to highlight this, they can be at multi-levels in one country. So we usually have some higher level platforms, but also some more operational ones, like in the form of working groups with public and private partners. So ideally, they cover all the levels and they fulfill several purposes at the same time. Yes. So indeed, operationally, they usually gather really private sector business membership organizations or also single companies and those partners who provide vocational education and training. And they focus on developing, designing training in response to the identified employment opportunities. So the ultimate objective is really to deliver effective implementation of skills development programs. That means to have employment outcomes. That's really the key asset of an opportunity-driven approach to VET. And at strategic level, they involve also the governmental level and really high-level private partners, and focus on the skills development and the sectoral challenges at a more strategic level to make VET systems more responsive to industry dynamics and to ensure sustainability and system integration. Again, it depends on the context. Sometimes it's good to start from the top and hope that there will be effects also operationally. Sometimes it's also very important to start a bit bottom up, to run operational projects and to lift them up to the policy level. And ideally, we have both sides covered, and for more effectiveness. Thank you. And yes, the big question of sustainability. This remains a big challenge to ensure long-term impact, to have partnerships that run over a long time, even if single funded projects are running out. So the lessons we could draw for sustainability is really to build on and reinforce existing structures as much as possible. There are a lot of partnerships and structures already around, and we really need to identify them and to get more people on board, or to refresh them a little and to make use of those structures. Very important is to ensure local leadership by a public or a private actor. We had both in our programs, and we saw it is very relevant to have this local ownership for continuation after a funded project is running out. And the sustainability issue, financing opportunities, should be addressed very early on. It should be just a topic in the partnership, in a dialogue, to ensure this, to have an exit strategy, to know, okay, even if it's for some year, yes, we want to know what's after. How can we keep it up, and who can contribute in what ways to have it as a self-sustaining mechanism. So yeah, to make the, let's say, the donor obsolete in that case. Indeed. So like this multi-level and continuous dialogue can be sustained, and I think these are the key success factors for ensuring this sustainability. And yes, I said it, the donors are maybe not so much needed, but in theory, often it's very important to have some facilitation in the beginning. At least this is what our experience shows. So the role of development agencies and projects is still quite important in the beginning, and they should act as honest brokers to bridge the public and the private interest, to get them together, to facilitate trust building, to allow for piloting project, to trigger co-financing arrangement, to guide the discussion a bit, and also to ensure inclusive governance, to maybe push a little bit at one or another edge to get local ownership realized. And then we can, let's say, from a development agency side, a gradual transition towards local leadership and financial sustainability can be reached. Very important to step back very soon and to leave it to the local actors that are no doubt capable, but often it's just a lack of time or finances. But if we address this very early on and find solution, there are good chances for sustainability. Yes, I think this is so far from my side. This is what we learned from the toolbox and what we will discover in the Team Europe Initiative for Opportunity-Driven Skills Development as well. And yes, I'm happy to receive your comments and your questions or your experience.
Thank you, Martina. Yes, indeed, if you have any questions, feel free to add them in the chat. Of course, you can also keep them for the discussion after if you want. We also have other interesting input coming up. For now, I don't see any questions or any hands raised. So I suggest, it means that it was very clear. So that's also good. So then I would invite the next speaker, to take the floor. That is Diego Borrero from the Global Gateway ICR facility. Diego.
Hello. Can you hear me? Because just a quick sound check.
Yes.
Yeah?
We can hear you. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here with all of you. A big thank you to Pauline, Martina, Bart, Capucine, Guillaume, and all my friends from the TI of PET community for this invitation. And I have to say, I really like the name of this webinar series, building on this friendship. So let me start with putting you in a situation. Let me start with a moment I'm sure many of you have experienced. You are at a high-level workshop between policymakers and the private sector. And during the coffee break, or even right in the middle of the discussion, you hear someone kind of frustrated telling you, why are we even here? We've been consulted for years. The problems are known, and yet time passes and nothing changes. I'm sure it sounds familiar, and that we've all been into that situation, particularly when we are talking with the private sector in those coffee breaks. This frustration captures actually a real challenge, which is that gap between dialogue or apparent dialogue and delivery. And that's exactly why a well-functioning public-private dialogue, or PPD, let's call it PPD as of now, is it's so important. So in the next few minutes, I will share why PPD is so important to the ICR facilities work as a key tool for reform, how we structure it at the ICR facility, why it matters, and what we have learned in the past 5 years. So my goal is pretty simple with this presentation, is to leave you with a few practical insights that you can take back, whether you are a policymaker or an international development practitioner or a private sector representative, or if you're even part of an ongoing dialogue right now. Next slide, please. So first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the ICR facility. The ICR facility is a joint initiative co-funded by the European Union, the OACPS, the BMZ, and the British Council. We are a Team Europe initiative implemented by GIZ, British Council, Expertise France, and SND. And our mission is very simple, and this has been our mission from the beginning, is to support partner countries in improving their investment climate so that the private sector can thrive and can create decent jobs and sustainable growth. So very simple, how do we do it? We deliver on-demand targeted technical assistance, technical interventions where we aim at either fixing or enhancing or enabling a particular aspect of the business environment. All of this with a strong focus on women's economic empowerment and, back to the topic of today, deeply rooted on public-private dialogue, PPD. Next slide, please. So far we have implemented more than 90 projects in over 70 countries, from green jobs in Ghana, first intervention in 2022, reforming the parental leave in Papua New Guinea. We have had the chance to operate, as you can see, in a very varied and diverse context, delivering the type of results that you can see on your screen right now. Results that we are proud to say that we have delivered together with our partners, and because we co-create the intervention with our partners and we co-implement these interventions with our partners. So these partners can be government agencies or private sector organizations. So we work with both. And you can start seeing the why public-private dialogue is so important into our DNA. Next slide, please. So why PPD? Well, PPD is crucial for reform. And I'm going to share 3 fundamentals that we promote in our ICR approach. First, PPD builds trust and transparency between government and businesses. When PPD is done well, PPD reduces the information asymmetry, because on one hand, you have policymakers that can gain real-time insights into what are the real constraints and challenges faced by entrepreneurs, naming regulations, licensing, taxation, etc. While on the other hand, you have entrepreneurs, the private sector, understanding where these policy goals are going and addressing, and also even the limitations faced by the government. Second, why PPD? Well, PPD informs the reform. It sounds very with a nice rhyme. And PPD informs the reform because it improves the quality of these reforms and, of course, their implementation. With PPD, reform, the design of this reform becomes more evidence-based. And this is what we all want, evidence-based policies, evidence-based reforms and actions. And these reforms can, and these decisions ultimately can be better targeted towards the desired outcomes. And in that way, we somehow increase the likelihood that reforms are practical and actually address the real issues, the real bottlenecks, of course, with the right data, the right information coming from the right source. And third point, PPD strengthens institutional capacity and inclusiveness. This was already mentioned in Martina's point. We start seeing some joint points in common. PPD helps institutionalize that collaboration. And I mean institutionalized because it should not be as ad hoc consultations as it often happens, but on the contrary, embedded, institutionalized, own governance mechanisms for reform. And this, as you know, has very long-term benefits. Next, please. So what is the elephant in the room? What is the elephant in that coffee break that I mentioned at the very beginning? Well, we've all been talking about PPD for decades, 20 years, 30 years. But too often, the concept of PPD has been misunderstood by many. Why? Because it stops at the D of those three letters. It stops at dialogue. So meetings happen, consultations happen, but nothing really moves. And I think that has been a kind of a conceptual, let's say, misunderstanding that has been quite prevalent. And at the ICR facility, we are working to shift that paradigm, to shift that focus from dialogue, which of course is good. We first need to that dialogue. So from dialogue to results, from, let's say, the talking shop to the real action. And that's why we talk about this concept of PPD for results, PPDR, which is a term coined and a concept coined by James Brew. PPD for results recognizes that dialogue must be more than talk, right? It needs structure, it needs accountability, it needs measurable outcomes. So here the message is simple, and I also like to invite you to visit our website and check our PPD for results toolkit, because here the message is simple, it is not about how much you talk or the amount of people in the room. It is about what changes because we talk, what is created by this dialogue. Next slide, please. So how does this look in practice through our ICR experience? Our support to PPD works at different levels. And this shows how PPD has multiple entry doors. So it can work at the national level, at the sectoral level, at the supranational level even. And this shows how adaptable this approach is and how it can be adapted to different contexts, even to different power dynamics. At the national level, in Cabo Verde, for example, we helped develop a roadmap for PPD. And the goal was to move away from ad hoc consultations towards a structured and more predictable dialogue between the public and the private. One dialogue that is aimed to be regular, to be inclusive, that clearly defines how priorities need to be set, and of course, how it needs to be followed up by the different actors around the table. At the sectoral level, for example, in Tanzania, we work with TAREA, the Tanzania Renewable Energy Agency, to introduce a PPD approach that would bring public and private sector around key renewable energy issues. As part of that project, we also supported the creation of a group of PPD champions within the agency, the TAREA, to make sure that this capacity and this ownership stays. This capacity to manage the dialogue stays in place and at a supranational level with UEMOA, which is the Union économique et monétaire de l'Afrique, Western Economic and Monetary Union, Western Africa. We supported the creation of a regional PPD platform. This is one of a kind and probably a model to be replicated in other regions. This supranational PPD platform is aimed to allow governments, the union itself, private sector representatives from the 8 member countries of the UEMOA to jointly tackle common challenges related to economic integration. And finally, a very important part of our work is engaging the actors who are often less visible. And this, I have talked about women's economic empowerment. I have talked about the youth, and this also involves MSMEs, for example, micro, small, and medium enterprises. Just focusing on MSMEs, they make up more than 80% of the private sector in many of our partner countries, and yet their voice in policy dialogues is often quite limited. So we help them build their capacity, use data, use evidence to strengthen their influence in these dialogues. And a great example of this was our support with MPME Côte d'Ivoire, which is the Confederation of MSMEs of Côte d'Ivoire. There, the results are quite strong. And we have not only through this, or the MPME has not only gained real influence within the national dialogues, but also have seen concrete reforms enacted and implemented by the executive as a result of this enhanced participation in the national dialogues. Next, please. Finally, I want to leave you with a few lessons from our work on PPD. And yeah, I could give you 100, but I like to just focus on the ones that are more, let's say, from our very experience in this past 5 years. the text is pretty self-explanatory, but very briefly. PPD is not a one-off thing. Organizing a meeting or a conference on a certain topic or a consultation even is not PPD. PPD, as you saw, requires a structured approach. So PPDR, as we promote, requires more of a continuous reporting. It requires an agenda, requires follow-up. Otherwise, as we come back to the coffee break story, otherwise it can create apathy and lack of trust. So we need to avoid that. Second, PPD needs to be self-sustainable. And I go back also to one of the points mentioned by Martina earlier. From inception, the parties need to define a way to make this PPD platform sustainable, funding-wise. Of course, at the beginning, a boost by donors or by external can be, of course, helpful, but it cannot depend on this funding forever. So this needs to be thought from the very beginning. And finally, PPD requires strong governance and participatory mechanisms. And of course, when we say strong governance, that's a word that can be applicable to everything. But truly, on paper or in the minutes of a PPD meetings or in the photo, you can make it look very inclusive and everyone's happy in the picture. But in reality, PPD can also be easily captured by the big fishes. That's why we have the fish icon there. So we need to make sure that everyone is involved, and particularly those less visible or noisy stakeholders are heard, and that the dialogue and the outcomes of this dialogue is not captured. Next, please. Before wrapping up, you may notice that even the logos changed in the presentation. I'd like to mention briefly that the ICR facility is entering a new chapter, the Global Gateway ICR facility. In this new chapter, we are building on the same strong foundation, what we have harvested from this past 5 years. We're still on demand technical assistance facility, but now with a sharper focus on supporting our partners to fully leverage the benefits of Global Gateway investments. So stay tuned or contact us if interested to learn more. Next, please. Voila, with this, I want to close this presentation. And I want to thank you all for your attention. Feel free to contact us, to visit our website, to join our LinkedIn community, which just reached 5,000 followers. And I look forward to further exchanges and, of course, further collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diego. That was a very interesting and enlightening presentation that you gave here. And it's true that although you don't really work in the sector of skills development, I mean, the lessons that you presented, recommendations as well, they all apply to skills development PPDs as well. So I thought it was very, very relevant. I also like your big fish recommendation. Indeed, how do we ensure that all the voices are equally represented and that the conversation is not really only taken by the big fish. So thank you for that. I see there's some comments in the chat. I don't know if it is really for your presentation so far. I think it is more on the opportunity-driven approach to skills development, and I think Martina is taking care of those questions in the chat, although we can go back to that after. Yeah, I would propose then, of course, I have questions for you, but maybe to have them at the end so that all the speakers can also be involved in that discussion. So thank you so much, Diego. And of course, yes, everyone, feel free to go and check out their resources on public-private dialogue. They have a very interesting toolkit that is available on their website. So yes, I invite you all to go and check it out. All right, so now I'm going to give the floor to our next example. Let me go back to the slideshow. Oh, sorry, I forgot this slide. Here you have all the resources that they developed on that topic. And now on to the next example, which is the Namibia Green Hydrogen Program. Let me just check something real quick. Okay, yes, so the Namibia, Green Hydrogen Program, and now, of course, you can see it better. Yes. All right, so for this, I'm going to give the floor to Nicholas Limbo, who work for the Namibia Green Hydrogen Program, and they're gonna talk about their platform for skills development on green hydrogen. Nicholas, can I ask you to take the floor, please, if you're there?
Thank you very much, and greetings to everyone. My name is Nicholas Limbo, as was said. I work as the skills development specialist here at Namibia Green Hydrogen Program. Just wanted to take you through a little bit of our journey in terms of how we sort of been working on creating private public sector partnerships with the development of our national skills development strategy for the green hydrogen sector here. Yeah, next slide if we can. Great. So I think we sort of, as a country, embarked on really igniting the whole green hydrogen industry about nearly 3-4 years ago, and really driven at addressing some of our socioeconomic development targets as a country. I wouldn't really want to dwell so much into that, but yeah, if we can move to the next slide, perhaps. And maybe also just skip this one a little bit. It's a little bit outdated here. Okay, great. So where did it start? Yes, obviously with the establishment of the Green Hydrogen Program, which was really a structure that was established under the presidency, under the previous late President, His Excellency, Dr. Hage Geingob. There was quite a number of research that was done through, our development partners like GIZ, who then had looked at what sort of skills needs would the emerging green hydrogen industry need. And what we had is really the front copy of that document. It was an assessment that was conducted by GIZ that looked at the skills, needs, and gap analysis in Namibia's PTX sector. And we really sort of started working around the premise of some of the findings from that study. So if we go the next slide. Great. So what came out very clearly from the study was the need for establishing some mechanism or platform that would then bring the private sector and the public sector and TVET institutions in particular together to really look out to map up the sort of skills needs for this new, very, very new emerging industry in the country that has never been seen before. So hence, part of the recommendations from the GIZ and PTX study was the establishment of a national task force on education, research, and skills development for the green hydrogen industry. And that this task force really was so much aligned and informed by with the establishment of the Namibia Green Hydrogen Association, which is really a body representing nearly all the key role players in the green hydrogen industry in Namibia. Next slide. Great. So essentially, we then had ensured that the task force is chaired by Dr. Grant Muller, who also doubles as the chairperson of the Namibia Green Hydrogen Association. But with that, they also a number of public role players and as well as industry that are also part of that task force. Essentially, the task force was really, the essence was that we were looking at creating a forum where industry, education and training providers, as well as government and research institutions could engage, around the issues related to workforce development for the green hydrogen industry in Namibia. Great, next slide, yeah. Good. I mean, that is just a summary of some of the key stakeholders represented in the task force. We have, especially of particular emphasis, is the Namibia Green Hydrogen Association, which is really a structure that represents the key green hydrogen projects in the country. And by design, we ensured that structure chairs the task force. And obviously, you've got the public sector being the Ministries of Education and of Labor, the Namibia Training Authority, the Namibia Investment Promotion Development Board, the Namibia Qualifications Authority, and the National Commission for Research, Science and Technology, and the Council for Higher Education. And of course, we've then also co-opted some of our key development partners in GIZ, the GIZ Pro-TVET program that they run here, as well as the new EUD project that is sort of representing the European Union and the sort of support that they are offering to the Namibia Training Authority here. Great. Can move to the next slide, yeah? Great. So really the major focus has been for us to really, we then sort of work with the support of a team of consultants from the World Bank, really to dwell deeper into the skills gap analysis study that was done by GIZ, to really then dwell more into quantify the sort of actual skills demand from the green hydrogen projects, and relate that to the sort of available skill supply in country. And we sort of spent the past 5 months really working on that, of course, with a lot of support from the task force and also from the Namibia Green Hydrogen Association. We have been able to really establish a very good working relationship with nearly all the green hydrogen projects that are taking off in the country. So essentially, you have Hyphen Energy, you've got Cleanergy, you've got the Daurus Green Hydrogen Village, you've got High Iron and HDF and Zero as some of the projects that are really also part of the Namibia Green Hydrogen Association. And we sort of then developed a questionnaire that was really intended to actually identify the actual skills needs, the actual skills demands of these projects. And we then conducted consultative meetings and sessions with on site to actually administer this questionnaire. So the questionnaire essentially looked at really identifying the key, a bit of background interruption here. Yeah, so really identifying key occupation. All right, so go on. Yes, so identifying the key occupations that, the sort of key occupations that are really critically needed to really springboard the green hydrogen industry in the country, and also looking at quantifying the actual numbers and ranges of actual sort of direct induced jobs that could really come out of the sort of project value chain. So essentially, we then mapped out the actual value chain, from feasibility, construction, commissioning, and maintenance, and the whole supply chain sort of system. So we actually then sort of wanted to align the sort of occupations along those value chains. And we, unfortunately, or fortunately in a way, we were able to get quite a lot of collaborative support from some of the projects. But the unfortunate part, again, remains the fact that most of the projects have really been at the very first phases of production. Some are even still at feasibility. And it becomes a bit challenging for them to really understand the sort of occupations and job sort of numbers and ranges, as they are still really at more development and pilot phases. And as where we are, we have then sort of culminated our findings into a national skills development strategy and plan that we sort of releasing the first draft tomorrow, which will then be circulated to the task force for endorsement before it's actually then rolled out and circulated to all the key stakeholders in the industry. Within the strategy, we've actually sort of really done an analysis that sort of matches the sort of occupational ranges, the sort of occupations that the industry, the sort of skills demand in terms of what the industry is defined as the key occupations that are required to really springboard the industry. And we've sort of really, analyzed that relative to the sort of skills supply in country, meaning we've looked at the data in terms of what the TVET system has produced over the past 10 years, as well as what the higher education system has produced in the country over the past 10 years. And we've sort of really, compared that to the actual skills demand that the projects are sort of demanding. And I think we probably would be more at liberty to share these findings once the task force has actually endorsed the findings in the strategy. But I mean, we have sort of really done a bit of a summary of that during the recently concluded summit here. But very interestingly, it shows quite a lot of gaps in terms of really the sort of, especially the more skills that will be needed more at production and operation of the green hydrogen projects, as opposed to the bulk of the skills that are available that could service the construction phases of the projects that, the green hydrogen projects that are taking off across the country. However, there is also really, I think what is important to highlight, there is also indication of the huge need for reskilling, upskilling of the sort of current and available workforce across the country, mostly for the construction stages of the projects. So essentially looking at really the major gaps around specialized TVET skills beyond what most of what the TVET system has produced in the country are more your essential sort of artisan skills that are more essential for really construction and not very high level specialized technician type of skills. That gap really is very prominent in our findings, and we sort of are really trying to really come up with strategies that will bring together industry development partners and government through funding support from the Namibia Training Authority to actually then develop interventions that would really address those gaps. I think in a nutshell, that's where we are. I think on the next slides, we sort of really just summarized some of our, I think the next one. great. I think we just summarized some of the strategies that we envisage how this collaboration could work. So we're looking at really also looking at the professional capacity development of institutional management, training faculty and staff at both TVET and higher education institutions. Really of very critical importance is to harmonize resource mobilization between government development partners. And I think we skipped to mention the projects themselves, because the private sector represented by the project, they've also really been mobilizing resources to support expedited skills to really respond to attempting to address the skills demands that the industry requires. So I think really in a nutshell, because we sort of really are at infant stages of really developing these partnerships with the private sector. But I think what would really stand out has been the close collaboration between ourselves as the Namibia Green Hydrogen Program, being tasked with supporting the development of the green hydrogen industry in Namibia. Really our collaboration with the Namibia Green Hydrogen Association, which represents the key role players in terms of industry within the green hydrogen industry in Namibia. I think in a nutshell, that's where we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nicholas, for this insightful presentation, and indeed very, very hands-on. So a concrete example of a public-private dialogue platform that has been able to deliver real results already. Well, you said it; it's quite early on, but still, it looks already very, very promising. So I see there are some questions. Maybe something a bit more, yeah, for you then. Is the SDSP linked to Namibia's general education and TVET system in terms of recognized qualifications? Yeah, you can either answer in the chat or now very, very briefly. Nicholas, I don't know if you're still there.
Yes, I'm still here. I just missed a little bit of the last part of the question you said.
Okay, so the question is the SDSP linked to Namibia's general education and TVET system in terms of recognized qualifications?
Yes, definitely. I think what we have done, we've sort of really mapped up all the sort of skills gaps in terms of looking at also some of the structural issues that may constrain the development of targeted skills development interventions to address the gaps. Part of that, what we have identified is also the sort of very low levels of STEM-focused subjects within the general education system. And as we speak, we sort of working with the development partners, particularly the EU and GIZ, to host a workshop at the beginning of November in the southern town of Keetmanshoop. So interestingly, we have also then included the National Institute for Educational Development, who are really the critical sort of role players in curriculum development for general education in the country, to be part of that workshop. And we sort of are looking at really a thematic area around the general education curriculum, and how perhaps we could look at influencing the sort of curriculum rethink around STEM subjects that could really support some of the TVET and higher education skills program realignment, to speak to some of the key topics, within the green hydrogen PTX industry. Yeah.
Great. Thanks a lot. There's also another question for you. Well, you were talking that the private sector has been also investing resources in that. And here is a question. Are private sector actors involved or plan to be involved in providing equipment to TVET institutions and in providing workplace experience and learning and attachment of trainers? Is that something foreseen?
Well, at the moment, it's not very clear in a way. I think what most of the projects that are really at operation at this stage, they are sort of talking more about apprenticeship programs, supporting apprenticeship programs. Especially, I think we can make an example reference to High Iron, that has worked very closely with one of the premier TVET institutions here, the Namibia Institute of Mining and Technology at Arandis, that is much closer to the High Iron plant. So they've worked very closely with the NIMT to actually support during the construction phase of their phase one plant. And the inclination is really more to support apprenticeship programs, internship programs, than really to really put so much money into the institutions. They probably might be a different outlook with projects like Cleanergy, that is now scaling up their phase two project near Arandis, again closer to NIMT. So there are sort of talks about how they would really probably use that TVET institution to really host a lot of, the sort of more what you might term as a bit of a dual TVET system, like what you find in Germany, to really support, the project in terms of really scaling up their work, but at the same time also utilizing the sort of skills development opportunities the institution has to offer. I think part of that is there is a sort of a partnership project that has been agreed with, supported also by the EU, that brings together NIMT and the Namibia University of Science and Technology and the Namwater TVET Center here, to really also scale up some of the TVET skills that are closely above the artisan level, more to support that gap that I spoke about, the gap between TVET and the bit of engineering, more the specialist technician sort of skills levels in the country. Yes.
Thank you so much. There's there's questions coming for you. Again, well, let me know if you still have time to answer a few. So there is a question. So how do you deal with the uncertainty around development of the green hydrogen sector in Namibia in terms of skills planning? Yeah, and then focusing on the dialogue as well.
Yeah, well, difficult to say at the moment. I think the usual sort of challenges that impede the green hydrogen industry worldwide are really determined, sort of dependent on the issues of offtake agreements. And I think at this stage, the sort of envisaged flagship project, the Hyphen project, is also really around the issues around final investment decisions, and which are really also hinged around issues of offtake agreements. I think that is learning from some of the experiences from the African Global Green Hydrogen Summit. That is commonplace across most of the green hydrogen projects in the world, across the world at the moment. And I think we sort of are looking at some of the government interventions that are being thought of in terms of how do you then sort of get local government to sort of incentivize industry in terms of really looking at exploring more, broadly in terms of offtake arrangements. So these are some of the work that is happening within the green hydrogen program here. But I must say, really, that it really hinges around of offtake and final investment decision.
Thank you, Nicholas. There was a question about the National Training Fund being also involved and incorporated through a training levy for employers. But I saw that Luis Durango also answered that in the chat already. There's also a question, so are there any plans to develop training curricula with strong involvement from professionals in the sector? I think indeed there is a plan to do that, but I'll let you complement.
Yeah. No, yes, definitely. Think what we're looking at is once we've sort of validated, because I think we have a whole array of occupations that were identified by industry through the Green Hydrogen Association. So we sort of are looking at how do we then, once we have validated that with all the key stakeholders at next month workshop, how do we then establish technical working groups really made up of industry practitioners and expert practitioners to then look at an array of existing curricula in some of these occupations and to sort of infuse PTX related topics within existing curricula, and where necessary to really then develop all new qualifications and training standards within, involving some of the PTX topics that have never been trained and done in country before to support the emerging industry.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. Yes, I think the green hydrogen sector is of interest to the audience, but rest assured it's not the only time that we will talk about green hydrogen here in the TEI Obvet and Friends webinar series. There's more to come on that topic. Maybe then coming back to Diego and the ICR facility. In the meantime, there was a question for you. So how does the ICR facility interact with civil society? She mentions, for instance, NGOs that run vet schools. Well, of course, you're not working specifically with vet schools, but you have experience with working with civil society organizations.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. Yes, we often interact with civil society organizations, including NGOs involving in the field of training programs or the skills ecosystem, because they play an important role in connecting policy with practice. Just to clarify, as Pauline just mentioned, the ICR facility is not focused specifically on vet or education, but rather on improving the investment climate and business environment around it. So that's why we have this huge potential of complementarity with the work that our vet colleagues do. But it's true that in many of our PPD initiatives, these organizations participate as representatives of the skills and employment ecosystem, bringing huge valuable evidence from the ground. For example, on labor market needs or the challenges youth and SMEs face in accessing these skills and these opportunities.
Thank you, Diego. There's also another question in the chat from Zina Bendimia, who's asking, she would be interested to know whether the PPD approach includes a specific strategy to address this issue of the informal economic sector. So how do you involve this informal economic sector? Do you have experience with that as well, with the ICR?
Yes, thanks a lot, Zineb, for the question. It's actually a very important actor, the informal, formal workers, informal traders. And as you said, it's quite challenging to involve them in these dialogues. However, we do involve them. It's part of the let's say, ecosystem mapping that we do when defining which stakeholders should participate. Sometimes, and very often, they account for a lot of the private sector. And the challenge there is also to conciliate the policymakers' perspective and the informal. On one hand, showing the policymakers that the informal doesn't mean illegal, or informal doesn't mean the devil. And on the contrary, a huge source of employment, of growth, and livelihood. But on the other hand, we also need to find a way to share with the informal sector that formalization can be very, very positive. And we have very interesting experiences working, for example, with the municipality of Kigali, where we did this type of work with traders, informal traders in markets around the city. And now the situation is very different. Now there is an ongoing dialogue, or at least not a wall between the public and these traders. So very important to involve them and to break those walls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. It is indeed quite complicated topic, this involvement of the informal sector. For the toolbox, so the other project that was a predecessor to the TEI Obvet, one of the projects was focusing on e-waste management, so a sector where, of course, there's a lot of informal actors, let's say. So they were also involved in the discussions. Of course, you have to find a representative, so who represents those informal actors. So Zineb, I also invite you to have a look at the VET Toolbox website, the example in Kenya in e-waste management. And of course, we're open for more questions on that through email, via email exchange after. Thanks a lot. I would now give the floor shortly to Alexis Oyo, who will present also very briefly an example from Senegal and a successful public-private dialogue that led to very concrete results there. Alexis, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pauline. You hear me?
Yes, we hear you very well. Thank you.
Well, I must say this presentation is really excellent with all these concrete cases. I'm just ticking boxes of all the points which were said by all of you. So coming back on the VET Toolbox 2, there was a specific case also about PPPs on an operational level, and I do think it's important to have strong management at the level of a direction of training centers. That they go out and speak out with enterprises. So we have this case in the Port of Authority, the Port of Dakar, and logistics, and also in the heavy machinery. So they worked very well together, and they went out to see the enterprises, needed to work together closely. And this is really a kind of PPP, a partnership. So not just a dialogue, but a partnership really functioning well. But the VET Toolbox, through LuxDev, Lux Development, we set up an advisory board. And I do think also the aspect of an advisory board, as you also said during this presentation, is very important. This dialogue must remain. This was composed by the European delegation, the European Investment Bank, the training fund, the National Training Fund. And to come back to you, Diego, the informal sector, the National Training Fund, 12PT, they have specific budget lines for the informal sector so that they're not outside. We have also, of course, Eurochamp, the Chamber of Senegal and Europe, and then, of course, the employers of Senegal. So these kind of projects in the port and heavy machinery sector, at the end of VET Toolbox 2, you know what? They just continue. They've set up this collaboration and the 12PT, the National Training Fund, they continue financing this kind of intervention. And I do think that's a good example that I was insisting so much if I could just share it with you. Yesterday I was in a panel with ILO in Addis, and also there we talk about the importance of the National Training Funds, where the national sector, and in the French-speaking part, they work together to un réseau africain des fonds de la formation professionnelle. It would be good also to exchange good practices. and not to reinvent the wheel. And definitely, as you all say, this brings to sustainability, because that's the most important. A donor can be very important in the beginning to kick off an intervention, but as you also said, it must continue. And in this case also, again, I'm very proud to see in the case of Senegal with 3FPT that this is really continuing. And there also, I think a donor with the role of facilitation, which was said also by you, is very important. I think nobody better than a donor to do so. And this is kind of a task that must be really mentioned. So it's just in a few words, insisting, of course, what we see with some national training funds, that the employers are not always heard. They pay the training levy, 1 or 2%, and even 3% in the case of Senegal. But then 50% of the 3% in Senegal goes back to the employer. So they really feel, okay, we pay it, but we get our results. So I think it's important. In some countries, it's not the case. And they just pay tax and then they don't see the benefit. And that's what also I think the strong dialogue must be really leading to concrete results on a permanent base. So I wanted to really stress that also, that it's very important to have the employers on board from the beginning until the end. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. Yes, for this very concrete example for Senegal. If you want to know more as well, my colleague posted the link to the Toolbox website a bit more, and you will find info sheets on all countries and examples. I see someone raised their hand. Humphrey, if you have a question, yes, please feel free to take the floor. We don't have much time left, unfortunately, but I think for one last question, we can let you intervene.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the great presentations that have been given. This is Humphrey from Zambia, the President, United Federation of Employers in Zambia. On our side, I think what we are lacking is the issue of how the skills development fund or skills levy is used. In Zambia, there is no social dialogue on the aspect of the skills fund. So it's something that we're advocating for, so that employers could have a serious voice. And that can only be done when we have all concerted efforts and other players coming on board. But in terms of the skill, it's very, very important. Right now, I'm at the International Training Center for ILO in Italy, where we are discussing issues of skills at the global level and how we can also help in the upskilling skills in TVET institutions, in the higher learning institutions. So I don't know, can there be some form of collaboration or partnerships at the national level for federations of employers like ourselves? Is there any leeway that we can partner under the EU project or many other projects that may come? Thank you. I submit.
Thank you, Humphrey. I don't know, Alexis, if you want to jump in on the question of training funds again.
Well, of course, the issue, as was said, it's happening in so many countries. There is a training levy, but it's not used properly. And that's why this permanent dialogue must be institutionalized. And therefore, it would be good to sit around the table with the donors, with the governments, and to see, we pay this training levy, but what is it used for? I know some countries where it's maybe 5%, which is very much, but just 0.5% goes to vocational training. So that's not correct. So I think this, in this case and the case of Zambia, I know you are discussing it, and I keep on discussing and don't let it go. It is very important to insist that the employers, really should get results for this back to their enterprises.
Thank you, Alexis. And of course, Humphrey, feel free to send us an email. My colleague will put the email address in the chat as well for more information on our activities and how we can maybe support. All right, we are closely approaching the end of the webinar. Before we leave, I would give the floor to my colleague Martina as well for wrapping up and the key takeaways.
Yes, thanks. Thanks also to all speakers. I will make it very short as everything important was said. So for me, the key highlights I heard is really to build trust, to set up something that has good chances to be sustainable and that leads to concrete results. So we really need to have the objectives and the results in mind so that it's not just a dialogue finishing earlier or not leading to any outcomes. We need to get all the important partnerships around one table, and the informal sectors is equally important, also the national training funds. Wherever they exist and where they work or where they have potential to work, let's get them on board because, yes, we heard there is huge potential and successful examples. Yes, and as agencies donors, let's just step back as soon as possible because the power lies in the local structures. And voila, I think this is the key highlights, and we still have 2 minutes left.
Thank you, Martina. Yes, so a warm thank you to all the speakers today. Thank you, Diego, of course, our friends from the ICR facility. We hope to continue this friendship in the future. Thank you as well, Nicolas, for taking time out of your busy schedule to present the example of green hydrogen. And thank you, of course, Alexis and other contributors as well in the chat. It was very interesting to share with you on that topic. Of course, the discussion does not end here, so we foresee other webinars as well. Employment will be the topic of the next one. It is a very broad topic, but you will get information later on so that you do not miss it and you're informed on when it takes place, sorry. And then, of course, in 2026, there will be other webinars to come to deepen the topic of financing or green hydrogen as well. Before you leave, when you leave the meeting, you should see a short survey, satisfaction survey show. So please take time to answer. That would make it. That would be very useful to us to see what we can improve for the next webinars, of course. And again, thank you for the very nice exchange today. We hope there's gonna be many more, but of course we will give you the opportunity for further exchange as well. And don't hesitate to contact us per email as well, info@tiobvet.eu. I put it in the chat right now. So that if you have further questions, we can continue the discussion. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diego. Bye-bye.